Hello, this is the Stories Beside channel. I release videos every day for you. Subscribe and click the bell. Almost all night, Kelly did not sleep a wink, and it was only towards morning that she fell through. Restless sleep. She had nightmares in which Ethan was the protagonist, or rather, he was the victim of monstrous creatures in her night visions. Kelly tried to save her husband, but she failed because the menacing monsters took him with them every time. But they did nothing bad to her. Opening her eyes, the woman looked anxiously at her son sleeping next to her. Thomas had not waited for his daddy, with whom he loved to play, to show up yesterday. A quiet voice came from the next room. "Kelly, you're awake." The woman carefully covered her son with a blanket and hurried to the call of the sick mother-in-law. "Nina is thirsty. You should have woken me up earlier. I'm already boring you. You've been traveling with me. You're all pale and green. Don't be silly. You're not the cause of all this trouble. Besides, you're doing great. Hang in there. We're on our way up." The old woman sighed heavily. "I know it's because of Ethan. He may be my son, but if it were up to me, I don't know what I'd do to him. He's ruined your life. You're such a sweet girl, and you deserve to be happy." Kelly tried to hold back her tears because her mother-in-law's words awakened in her pity for herself and for this kind woman who was helpless because of her son's fault. As if reading her thoughts, the mother immediately began to justify Kelly's son. "But Ethan wasn't always like this. I had him when I was 42. My husband and I had given up trying for nothing. And here we are." My mother-in-law had trouble speaking, and some of the sounds she couldn't make at all. But Kelly had learned to understand her confused speech, and now she looked at the old woman with surprise, because it was the first time she shared with her daughter-in-law the most intimate things. She cheered up his patient. "Speak, speak. I'm not very interested in your family history. You can't get a word out of Ethan." Nina's face paralyzed, and she smiled. "And he doesn't really know anything. And he doesn't remember his father very well. My husband was 10 years older than me and already dreamed of a carefree old age. He wanted to buy a house somewhere in a quiet place on the bank of a small river. For the sake of his cherished dream, my Willem gave up the car, for which he had been collecting money for 10 years. We found a suitable house, but then the irreparable happened." It was the first time my mother-in-law had ever made such a long speech. Kelly did not rush her, although these and unknown pages of the life of this courageous woman intrigued her. The daughter-in-law handed her mother-in-law a glass of water. She took a few sips and continued. "There were envious people at all times, and my William had his detractors, who were at the throat of his demanding nature. After all, my husband was a supervisor at the construction site, so the ONON did not give slackers a hard time. I wasn't in the habit of getting into it. My husband didn't wear it. I thought Willem was doing the right thing, and it came as a shock to me when one day there was a knock on our door almost at night. I thought I couldn't bear the shame. Nina, you mustn't worry. Maybe you shouldn't remember unpleasant moments. No, my dear. I want to tell you everything. There's no one else. I have a bad feeling about this. Don't get yourself worked up about it. Remember what the doctor said. Relaxation, positive emotions. If you keep this up, you'll be back on your feet in no time." The mother-in-law gave her daughter-in-law a strange look. "I'd rather hear what you have to say, but I'd better finish my story. On my husband, someone from the offended denounced that they say, the state funds pocketed and bought a dacha on them. Specialists from the relevant authorities and came to us. They turned the house upside down. But what they were looking for I don't know to this day. Ethan was just a kid then and kept getting under the feet of those bastards. One of them kicked their kid." Ethan cried, and William couldn't take it anymore, so he threw his fists at the scumbag. Before I knew it, they were all over the place. 3 of them, they jumped on the old man. I mean, he was in his 60s. Kelly felt bad. "Did they beat him up in front of you?" "No, they didn't beat him on my watch. They just bent him over and kicked him out of the apartment. The husband asked them to let him say goodbye to his son and his wife. They wouldn't listen to him. And in the morning, they didn't tell him Willen was dead. They called on the phone. I guess they didn't have the conscience to go home. They said his heart gave out. The husband died during the interrogation there. They called an ambulance, but the doctors couldn't do anything. A massive heart attack. The woman was tired of the story, and she covered her eyes. And her chest heaved. She was having trouble breathing. Kelly was shocked by the story, but also very much wanted to hear the end of it. Nina, what about that cabin? Nothing. The anonymous tip on my husband turned out to be false. We checked all the paperwork. It's a clean slate, but there's no coming back. They didn't even see fit to apologize to me. They didn't even help me bury the man they killed. Do you know how hard times were back then? Here we are together with Zhenka, and we sang our sorrows. Yes, it's been rough. You don't envy it, do you? Kelly wanted to go to the kitchen to make breakfast, but her mother-in-law grabbed her arm. Ethan's not bad. He's the one who's gone bad lately. Is it the influence of his buddies? I mean, he was an honor student in high school. Then he went straight to art school. Dreamed of opening his own gallery, but after a year he dropped out and transferred to another institute to study architecture. He said he wanted to continue his father's work. 2 years later, he was expelled for absences. I don't know at what point I missed my son, because I gave him everything. I worked 2 jobs, and then I did translations at night. Maybe that was a mistake. Nina closed her eyes again. I think so myself now. I shouldn't have turned my son, he said. The older he got, the more he demanded. The last thing I gave him was my health. For a few minutes, the woman fell silent and then whispered, "Already I do not remember when I talk so long. Tired, I am very tired. You rest, and I'll get breakfast." There was a suspicious noise in the small room. Thomas seems to be awake. He's going to turn the place upside down. The mother-in-law squeezed the young woman's hand lightly. I'm so happy to have a grandson, Thomas. A real miracle. To give her grandmother a chance to rest, Kelly took her son with her. The kitchen was large enough for the baby to have his own corner to play in. Thomas grew up a quiet child and always found something to do. He talked. Not much yet. He was limited to single words or simple phrases. While Kelly was preparing the meal, the baby was playing something indistinctly under his breath. The mother looked at the baby fondly. When you talk at your age, you should ask your mother questions. The child appreciated this treatment in his own way. He picked up his favorite car and held it out to his mother. "Mommy car." Kelly laughed. "You're mixed up, son." "Knock, knock," says the steam engine. "Where's the steam train?" Carapace rushed to his makeshift playground and retrieved a steam train from a pile of brightly colored toys. "Mom, she thank you, my son. You're a good boy." The praise energized the 1.5-year-old, and he began spinning in place, his chubby arms doing pretzels. Kelly picked him up in her arms. "You understand everything. You say you do." She sang something on the stove. "Matyusha, you distracted Mom a little milk soup. You and I didn't run away. Now it'll cool down a bit, and we'll eat. Let's go wake up Grandma." The boy with a joyful squeal ran from the kitchen. "Kelly, I heard him offering his toys to Grandma already. What kind of woman is she?" "Good for you, grandson. I'd love to ride your steam train with you, but my ailments won't let me in." Kelly was surprised at her mother-in-law's unusual behavior. So lively she had never seen her before. As it happened, she had become her husband's mother's caregiver. Willingly, the woman had suffered a stroke more than 6 years ago, and its aftermath had left her disabled. But before, she didn't speak, only mood. Her mother-in-law couldn't move either. So Kelly had to turn the sick woman over every day so that she would not form extra. Ethan rarely helped her. One day he confided in her, "Kelly, the smell alone makes me sick. You're a nurse. You're used to all this." She could not recover from this revelation for a long time, but still tried to get through to her husband. Ethan, but it's your mom. I'm nobody's man to Nina. Whether jokingly, but perhaps seriously said probably. I'm a cynic, but you live in a city apartment, enjoy the benefits of civilization, and for comfort must pay. So you think my taking care of your mom is some kind of work obligation? Are you serious? I am. Ethan, what do you take me for? The man realized that he overdid it and began to apologize to his wife. Olga was then in the last month of pregnancy and offended at any small thing. Kelly, well, I'm sorry. Bully long ago, it's time to get used to my jokes. Your jokes are stupid. Kelly remembers Ethan getting down on all fours and playing the faithful dog. He was generally a master of parody and always used it to surprise or stump the other person. His stylized dog barking from under the snatch caused the future mother to laugh, and the unpleasant incident was quickly forgotten. Although family life did not spoil Kelly with joys, some moments were still pleasant to remember. She thought about it while pouring milk soup on plates. Nina was talking to her grandson in an incomprehensible language, but at the sight of her daughter-in-law with the tray, she became animated. Thomas, then we'll continue with you on the games. Now we're going to taste my mom's soup. I've worked up an appetite today. I wonder what that's about. Kelly put a plate on the special feeding table for the sick. That's a good sign, Nina. It's a sign that things are getting better. I'd like to believe you. But the women said when I was in the hospital that this is what happens before death. Stop even thinking about it. I don't like your mood today. That's it. I'm done. Nina ate with gusto and thanked her sister-in-law. Kelly, thank you. It was delicious. I have one favor to ask of you. Of course, you didn't have to ask. Call Jinka. I'm feeling a little restless. Kelly spoon-fed Thomas, taking advantage of her mother's distraction. The baby's hand went into his plate, and soon there was a snake of noodles on his face and clothes. The woman caught on, but it was too late. Thomas, what have you done? Now I'll have to clean the room some more. Turning to her mother-in-law, she replied discreetly, I called him several times yesterday and this morning, but his phone is disconnected later. I'll try calling again. Kelly started cleaning, but no sooner had she done the dishes than the doorbell rang insistently. Our missing man must be back. The women rushed into the hallway, but opening the door stunned, two unfamiliar men and women uninvited walked into the apartment. This is where Ethan lives. Kelly stepped back. Yes, who are you? From the room came Nina's question. Kelly, is Ethan back? No. One of the visitors unfolded an ID card in front of the young woman. I'm Chief Marshal Rogozin, and these are my colleagues. We're looking for Ethan. We can see him. No, he's not at home. May I ask what happened? A woman answered that question with a question. And who were you before him? And why are you asking questions? I'm a wife, and I have a right to know why you're here. This is a private residence after all. The unpleasant woman gave Kelly a scornful look. You're right on the money, aren't you? I don't think you'll be able to claim this place anytime soon. Are you kidding me? It's my mother-in-law's apartment, but Ethan's registered here. Yes, he does. My son and I live here too. Thomas didn't like his mother's long absence, so he ran out into the hallway. The guests didn't bother to close the door behind them, and a cold stream of air rushed into the apartment from the hallway. Kelly did not have time to catch the toddler, and he began to rub his back. To the die official, Ta roughly plowed the baby away from herself. Mommy, hold the baby. What kind of lawlessness? You, what a horror. He's something slippery, dirty me. The baby didn't like the treatment and whimpered. And Kelly rushed to remedy the situation. Sorry, we just ate and haven't had time to clean up yet. Oh, that's okay. It's just milk soup. The women forcefully pushed Kelly's hand away without touching me or giving us any teeth. We don't have time to go through the peculiarities of your life. The chief bailiff decided to intervene. The fact is, I understand your husband is a persistent debtor. He has 2 outstanding loans, and the amount of the penalty already exceeds the debt itself. That's why the bank was forced to sue. You don't know anything about that. What loan? We can barely make ends meet. I'm on maternity leave. The woman arrogantly remarked, "That's your problem, sweetheart. Now we're going to confiscate the property." What property? Anything that can compensate the bank for the loss. By the way, your husband put up this property as collateral. But that can't be. Where are we going to go? My mother-in-law is paralyzed. Women, we're not interested in your problems. You should have thought of that before, when you took out loans. But I don't know anything. Please, wait, let us through. And get your kid out of here. Kelly couldn't see from crying. Nina was in the same state. She tried to ask something to these stone-faced people, but the unpleasant official threw the same contemptuous glance in the direction of the patient. I wish they'd clean the place up. And the smell is so heavy. After such tenants, you can't do cosmetic repairs. Nina started calling her sister-in-law Velishko. I don't feel well. The woman went to the phone. I need to call an ambulance. You see, the man is sick. The unpleasant person smiled, but it was an evil smile. We've seen more heartbreaking scenes than that. So you don't have to try. It won't be long now. You don't really have anything of value here. Just a TV. What's in the kitchen? Microwave. Yeah, but it's not new. That's what I'm saying. Nothing to cover the loss. The senior exec scribbled something down for a long time, then handed the paperwork to Kelly, who was sitting at the bedside of her sick mother-in-law. Here is the writ. You are given a month's time to pay the arrears. If this requirement is not fulfilled, they will have to evict you through the court. Therefore, I advise you to take action in advance to find a place to live. As I understand it, you have no money. No, but you have no right to evict us. I have a small child and a sick mother-in-law. The senior executor looked at Kelly. I'm sorry for you, but the law is the same for everyone. And when it comes to money, there's no discount for illness and age. It's just that I sincerely advise you to relocate so that you won't be evicted by force. While Kelly was arguing with the bailiffs, she didn't notice that Nina was quiet. Thomas was cranky in her arms, which was also very distracting. Only after the visitors had left did the young woman turn to her mother-in-law. Gone, even the crib and the mixer were described. What are we supposed to do now? The mother-in-law was silent. Kelly rushed to her. Nina, you're not well. I'm gonna call an ambulance. The old woman's face was already clearly marked with the stamp of death. A cry of despair burst from the young woman's chest. She cried beside the belligerent body of the woman who had become near and dear to her over the years. Kelly did not know what to do or where to look for help. Ethan tried to get up, but his head cracked as if someone had hit it with a sledgehammer. My mouth was dry, and I couldn't even get my tongue off the sky. Trevor's voice came from far away. Ethan, get up. We've got a hangover. We're going to get better. Ethan tried to open his eyes and moved with difficulty. Idea. Well, you're a dog visiting Sam. You're stuck. What did you forget? Ethan tried to rack his brain, and the disparate images of the recent past began to coalesce into a coherent canvas. He remembered how he and Trevor had stopped by to visit Sam. But what had happened next? Completely erased from his memory, nothing could be remembered. Trevor had cheerfully suggested at the awards a cure would do the trick. Ethan's album left outstretched a friend glass and almost immediately felt relieved out of sorts. We hung out, but I don't remember what the occasion was. The owner of the apartment, which looked more like a night shelter for the homeless, also cheerfully prompted. Do normal guys need an excuse? The day's done, and it's fine. Your wife called you, and then you texted her. Ethan went into his jacket to get his phone. I'm sick of it. It won't let me make a move. So you'd replace it with another one. Thank God there's no shortage of women, Trevor. And my mom's back. You know, she's sick. And Kelly looks after her. So I have to put up with her presence. Ethan began to read messages from his wife, and suddenly spun Volchkov in one place. Shit, I'm a real freak, Trevor rushed to comfort his friend. What's wrong? You're yelling like you've been skinned. Trevor, it's worse than that. Mom's dead. You know what I mean. My mom's dead. I've been drinking here. Wait, yell. Maybe this is a joke. Trevor, what are you talking about? Kelly wouldn't joke about such things. The hangover quickly faded from his mind. Ethan ran, running for his life. He opened the door of the apartment and was stunned. There was dead silence. Kelly, where are you? No one answered him. Ethan turned on the light in the room where Nina had been bedridden for years. Seeing the neatly made bed, he screamed at the top of his voice, Mommy, Mommy, why did you leave me? What am I to do now? How to live? The neighbor from the apartment across the hall came running to the scream. She glanced disapprovingly at the young man, who continued to dash around the apartment. It's too late for you, Ethan. We buried him this morning. Kelly, you kept expecting me to hang myself before I had a son like that. God forbid. The whole house came together to give Nina a proper send-off. I'm not judging you, but that's the only thing you do to your own mother. Ethan was spinning around the room again. You're right about everything, Aunt Clava. But why didn't she call me? Kelly called you, and she was all over you. And she was right to leave. How she left? Who let her? The neighbor was startled by Ethan's inappropriate behavior and started backing toward the door. There's a note she left on the table. And there's a ruling. What ruling? I don't know. I'll deal with it myself. The door slammed loudly, and the man was left alone. Ethan began to read the document the bailiffs had left behind. Shit. What am I going to do? And this otter still ditched me. At such a moment, he read a short note from his wife. I can't live like this anymore. Don't come looking for me, you country chicken. Nobody's going to look for you. She's playing Nefertiti herself. No better face, no better figure. He sent the most unkind wishes to his departed wife. But the fuse of anger was only enough for a few minutes. Then his mind began to clear, and Ethan frantically dialed his wife's number. But the operator's answering machine told him that no such number existed. She must have thrown out the SIM card, she realized, and I'll find you for it anyway. And you'll answer to me for everything. Left to his fate, the husband could not formulate exactly what his wife was guilty before him. Another half an hour he rushed around the empty apartment, but he was afraid to stay here overnight. The only right way out was to go back to his friend Valera's house to pour out his misfortune together with his friends. At the time, Ethan was scolding her with the last words. Kelly was already far away. She called her mother's cousin and asked her for shelter. Auntie didn't say no. She just asked Kelly, "What's your problem?" Aunt Jenna, "I'll tell you all about it later. My parents know. Why don't you want to come home?" "I can't yet. Aunt Jenna, I'm still at a complete loss myself. Don't ask me, please." Okay. I'll meet you and Thomas. Of course, not without him." The bus was warm and cozy. Thomas fell asleep right away in his mother's arms, and Kelly's restless thoughts made it hard to relax. The driver turned on popular tracks to keep the passengers in the mood, but most often the hit song of yesteryear about the hope of a group of young people was played. The established ones in the very tail of the car were singing along. "Hope is my compass on earth." Kelly thought bitterly that once a long time ago, she had also sung this song with excitement together with the student squad, which was sent to help the toilers of the village. It had been a merry, carefree time. Naive village girl, expressing her freedom, believed that only happiness was ahead of her. At the incomplete age of 18, she was shocked by the scale of city life, but very quickly got used to the changes. Kelly then immediately decided that she would stay in the city after college. When she was offered a position at the polyclinic, she accepted without much thought. Just as quickly, she gave Ethan a positive answer. The son of a woman paralyzed after a stroke, whom she went to give daily injections and massages. The attention of a good-looking guy and analytical build flattered Kelly. Ethan had a good tongue, and the girl absorbed every word he said. The young man was still studying at a construction university and told her a lot about the cities of the future. In the village girl's imagination, the fairy tale prince was just like Ethan, and Kelly believed that with this man she would be bathed in happiness all her life. But the first months of marriage brought bitter disappointment. Ethan had made no secret of the fact that he had married her for the sole purpose of getting a free skilled caregiver. Kelly, you're a lucky man. You realize that a man shouldn't have to deal with such a delicate matter as caring for a sick woman. You have to ask your neighbors to pay for their services. Kelly was stunned by this revelation. Ethan, I thought you loved me. He hugged her gently. Rastriev, I love the girl, of course, but one does not prevent the other. By the way, for you too, a direct benefit. We'll register you, and you can find a well-paid job in the city. But you should be the envy of all the village girls. Indeed, many friends from medical school did not hide their admiration. Bitter, how lucky are you? You got a good husband and a comfortable apartment. Only her parents didn't approve of her daughter's hasty marriage. Lisa cried a lot after meeting her new family. Kelly, what a burden you've put on yourself. Nina's a good woman, but it's hard to take care of a sick person for years. And your Ethan, he's a total douchebag, isn't he? It's written all over his face. The girl tried to calm her mother down. I don't know what your antipathy is, but Ethan is very kind, and I'm fine with him. But I'm afraid you'll have to bite your elbows. How many of these people get married and then go to their parents with a dead head? That mother's prediction hurt the girl's ego. Don't worry, they won't come to you, as you said, with their heads down. Lisa escalated the situation even more. And you don't take offense at your mother. You know I'm telling the truth, don't you? How many such heroines have there been in our village? You're not saying anything. That's just it. I'll have to listen to gossip later. Mom, don't worry, I'll be fine. Kelly pretended that she was, but still she could not escape the fate of many naive girls. The driver's cheerful voice interrupted her thoughts. Dear passengers, this is the final stop. Please vacate the cabin as soon as possible, and don't leave your things behind. There were no greeters on the platform of the bus station. Only nearby Kelly spotted a familiar car. Sympathetic passengers helped the young mother unload her belongings. Kelly, I'm sorry. I didn't realize it would be so heavy with the baby and your things. The aunt picked up her luggage and walked briskly to her car. All the way she talked about the hardships of her life. Just before she got home, she asked Kelly, please don't tell Uncle Jack anything. He's a quirky guy who likes to turn things inside out. She didn't feel like eating after the tea's journey, so the guests had only a cup of tea. The aunt gave the relatives the room of her son, who was studying at an institute in the capital. You arrange it. We'll talk about business tomorrow. For the first time in the last few days, Kelly fell asleep soundly, with Thomas snoring blissfully beside her. The young mother was awakened by the loud conversation of the owners of the apartment. The guests clearly heard every word of the uncle. Jenna, I am amazed at your willingness to lend a shoulder to anyone. Kelly, for me it is not any person, but a relative, but even taking into account the kinship, it is unjustified altruism. That's my opinion. Jack, we need to help the girl. She's got a nursing degree under her belt, and there's a lot of demand for that kind of personnel. Jenna, why did your niece come to us with a baby? Why didn't she go to her parents? The aunt answered her husband with undisguised irritation. Then she had her reasons. I'm not in the habit of impudently prying into other people's souls. If she feels like it, she'll tell me herself. Well, just make sure you don't cry at your own kindness. I warn you, I will not tolerate dependency in my house. Kelly felt her face light up, but she waited another half hour so that her aunt would not guess that her niece had heard their argument. Jenna was cheerfully counting about trifles, but there was a sense of tension in this feigned joy. So Kelly behaved stiffly and tried to forestall the mischief of her young son. You eat, don't be shy. I didn't know what to make for breakfast. Then I thought buckwheat porridge with milk would be good for everyone, both hearty and healthy. Aunt Jenna, you needn't have worried. I could have made it myself. We could have gone to a cafe. I have money. I got my Thomas allowance before I left, and the neighbors helped with my mother-in-law's funeral. The landlady sighed. What's an allowance like that for food? Don't even think about cafes and other eating places. It's not enough that the child was poisoned. Adult food is destructive to his stomach. Don't even think about it while you're here. The aunt deliberately or accidentally hinted at temporary hospitality, but her words were again unpleasant, stabbed the young woman's heart. Aunt Jenna, don't worry. I'll go right now. I'll find out about the job. Will you get a job? Where will the baby go? Daycare. It's my little girl. They don't take kids like that now. They don't have a strong group. Kelly was confused. I didn't know. In the city, you can get a child without any problems. There's plenty of private daycare. This isn't the city. It's a different civilization, I think. Of course, you can find a nanny, but the rates for such services, you will definitely not afford a nanny. And I'm working, so I can hardly help. Kelly was at a loss. What do we do? You eat. You can't talk your way out of this. You need to think hard about your situation. Auntie patted Kelly on the shoulder cheerfully. Don't be sad. It's not evening yet. For me, even the most hopeless situation always has a way out. Jenna quickly cleared the dishes from the table. She was washing the plates to make the process more fun. An unfamiliar star is shining. It's a good song, positive. I like to sing it when we're doing chores around the house. After all, a song helps us build and live. As one classicist said, Kelly corrected her aunt. Those are lyrics from a song too. The landlady remarked triumphantly. You see, you mustn't lose heart. You and I will definitely think of something. When the kitchen was in perfect order, Jenna looked into the room where the guests were resting. Are you guys having a good time? I have to go out, but I'll be right back. Less than an hour later, the satisfied hostess announced from the doorway. Kelly, I have good news for you. The aunt's face shone partly, and this joy was transmitted to the young woman. Aunt Jenna, don't torture me. Tell me. Take your time. Maybe my offer will disappoint you. The woman leisurely changed her clothes, and about 6 went into the kitchen. It's freezing outside. I need to warm up. Jenna was drinking hot tea, and Kelly sat across from her. She waited anxiously to see how her fate would be decided. Finally, the aunt warmed herself and said solemnly, I told you there are no hopeless situations. I did not tell you immediately, and first ran to find out everything. In short, the case is as follows. In the village, we have a grandfather's house. Of course, this property is unlikely to provide a comfortable life, but still a roof over his head will be. The smile of joy slowly slipped from Kelly's face. Auntie, aren't you referring to the building where Sam's grandfather lived? And it's that domino that I'm talking about. And something just came through. It's a nice, solid house. We used to spend all our summers there. The woods, the river, mushrooms, and berries. I remember, Aunt Jenna, your Dimka, and I had a great time there. We even had our own collection point in the forest. Jenna picked up on that enthusiastically. Yes, I remember how we were looking for you, and you were hiding in a hut. And then Grandpa told us where you were hiding. I remember the angry bees. They stung us pretty bad that time. After that, I shied away from any buzzing. Yeah, bees don't like rough treatment, but what honey our grandfather had. People used to come from the city to visit him. They took not only honey, but also milk. Sam's grandfather was a great beekeeper. It's a pity his business has died out. Have you ever tried it, Kelly? I've got my own business to take care of. We used to grow things in the beds there for a while. Then we gave it up. It's expensive, even though it's not that far. And every trip out of town isn't free. So my grandfather's houses are unattended. A smile froze on the aunt's face. A pleasant memory must have visited her. The nostalgic pause didn't last long. Jenna pounded the table with feeling and said in a businesslike tone, Grandfather's house was already planned to be demolished by the local authorities, so they will be glad that they don't have to spend money on this event. And for temporary housing, I think the old house will do quite well. There should be a supply of firewood there, if the locals haven't torn it down. You know how to make a stove. Kelly had a short voice afterwards, didn't she? Well, that's fine. Tomorrow morning you and I will go on the road. Check the condition of the Sam homestead. That's what the hillbillies called Grandpa's house. You know why? I have no idea. Sam was a peculiar man, and not everyone liked him zealously. He answered his fellow villagers the same way and didn't want to live next door to those who voted behind his back. It is said that the ancestor of the grandfather was prosperous, and he was even cuckoolized by the new authorities, and the house was demolished. Sam decided to build on the ancestral place, and it turned out that the house was on the outskirts. The buildings are impressive, and it stands on a hill above the whole village. That's why they called it the Manor House. Interesting story. My mom never told it to me. If you live in the village, you'll hear a lot more. Jenna looked closely at her niece. Kelly, I can see you're not happy. No, Aunt Jenna, I'm very glad. I'm just a little scared. How I'm gonna be out in the middle of nowhere alone with a little baby. Jenna hugged the girl. You thought I wanted to get rid of you, did you? I don't think that. And don't you dare. If you've already trusted me, believe that you've found a reliable assistant, and don't pay any attention to your uncle. He grumbles and grumbles, and then he goes away. We won't leave you to your fate, and we'll help you at first. And then you'll see, and life will get better. That's an assurance. Aunt's a little reassured Kelly. But the fear of the unknown was still stronger. It was a sunny January day. The glare of the light was bouncing across the windshield, which caused Jenna's displeasure. To reduce the risk of collision with another vehicle, the woman wore sunglasses. It's an unusual day. It's like he wants to cheer us on. Kelly had to take her son with her, and she held him tightly in her arms. When she turned back, the aunt noticed that if the DMV sees us, Mickey's gonna get a ticket. And I don't have a child seat. Aunt Jenna, don't worry. I will hold Thomas tightly in my arms, and no one will notice him. I wish they would. I hope we get through to the village without any trouble. It's only 10 kilometers away. But after the previous day's snowfall, everyone moved along the highway at a minimum speed. Travelers spent almost an hour on the road, and then another hour to overcome a small section to the village. Yes, we should have checked the weather vodka first. I'd lost track of that. This ride was making me all hot and bothered. I'm more of a breeze rider. I didn't even know you liked extreme riding. Auntie winked mischievously. Kelly, you have no idea what your aunt is capable of. We're already being greeted. The whole village is here. You could guess the size of the dying village by the spirals of smoke rising from the sad chimneys. But it was evident that the news of the companions, who were already on the near approaches, had spread and drowned in snow the Hutam. From different directions, the villagers, old men dressed after the old-fashioned in sheepskin coats and women down in their shawls, hurried toward the road. Ignoring the customary guest etiquette, the grandmothers immediately began to scrutinize the new arrivals as well. I can't get out of this place. It's Jenna. Jenna who? Our sales girl quit a long time ago. I'm not talking about her. Jenna is the granddaughter of Sam, old beekeeper, who died about 8 years ago. Well, she hasn't exactly come forward in a long time. What's she doing here in the middle of winter? The grandfather with the stylish cane decided to explain. What's not to understand? Our deputy announced in the fall that the ownerless houses will be demolished, and the Sam estate has long been orphaned. No one's looking after the property, so she must have come to check on her property. Jenna pretended not to hear anything and greeted the residents of Illyrianov. Good afternoon. How are you? Grandfather Tim tapped his cane dashingly. Nothing, we live. We chew bread, but we're not expecting guests. That's a good way of putting it. Like a poet. The old ladies giggled, which grandfather regarded as a sign of recognition of his talent. But his moment of glory didn't last long. The burly woman pushed him aside. "Oh, Tim, let me talk to the man." The old man glanced resentfully at his wife, but did not interfere. "What's your fashion to spoil Adriana's mood? You won't let me say a word. You have a tongue like a broomstick. You say things without thinking. And not in the line of the city. I'm interested in your fables. How do you know about their interests?" The small crowd was revitalized, expecting to witness another family scandal. But Jenna had no plans for such events. To reduce the degree of emotion, she asked in a friendly manner, "Tell me, is it possible to get to my grandfather's estate?" The old ladies, interrupting each other, began to give recommendations. "If you go to the district through the forest, then you can." "Directly? No way. What kind of a detour would it be?" "We can also go to the reception." Tim came out proudly and tapped his cane like a staff. "Why are you misleading people? It's obvious that women are brainless creatures. Women for the gorgeous old man," and Adriana even took a swing. But the grandfather defiantly raised his cane above his head. "What are you clapping about? Am I wrong? Who gives such foolish advice? It's useless and dangerous to drive in a straight line or in a circle. The car will get stuck in snowdrifts. Who will pull it out? I'll show you, citizen. A reliable way to the manor." "No." Tim gallantly gave Jenna his elbow. Adriana couldn't stand it. "Look at him. I'm building and the sand is already falling. And he's still playing the romantic. When we get home, I'll show you." "And what is your secret path?" The old man tried to go around his half, but that boulder stood in the middle of the road. Grandfather was not about to give up. He understood the importance of his mission and strictly ordered to get out of Adriana's way for good. "You see, people need help." Contrary to the expectations of those present, the dimensional wife of a warm old man obediently stepped back, muttered under us, "Susanin is looking for." Now he will lead us into the wilds. While this lively dispute was going on, nobody paid attention to the passengers who were in the car waiting for its end. When Grandpa Tim moved forward, Jenna followed him. Kelly got out of the car as well. The women gasped. So Jenna had not arrived alone. Who would it be? Maybe a daughter. No, she has a son named David. Hold it right there. Ladies, I think I know who it is. Do you remember your sister Jenna? She looks exactly like Lisa. She didn't come with the baby. That, Kelly was embarrassed by the unceremonious scrutiny of her person and the heated discussion of the purpose of the visit. But Tim hastened to reassure her. "You girl, do not be angry with our women. Boring we live here, so they are glad of any chance. So our women are very kind. They will never refuse help." The old man led the guests along a narrow winding path from our hut, the shortest way to the beekeeper's homestead. "Forgive me, but I sometimes visit there out of necessity." Jenna asked with surprise, "Can I ask what that necessity is?" Grandfather looked around and then half-whispered said in Zaporizhzhia, "And you saw for yourself what Gorgon's in the flesh. And I'm a healthy man, though I'm old, and I need sometimes to vent my soul." Jenna coughed. The elderly guide realized that he was not quite clear and hastened to correct the mistake. "Don't get the wrong idea. I don't walk on the floor anymore, although it used to be a sin. Now my neighbor and I sometimes meet in secret to relieve stress. Home brew is the best way to do that. It's a divine drink. My Adriana's, and it turns out like a tear." Women laughed loudly, realizing that Grandfather Tim, so enthusiastically talking about moonshine, cheered up and laughing. Grandfather added a step. Soon the expedition was already in place. Here they came. We should have clocked how many spent no more than 5 minutes on the road. The counselor looked at Kelly. "That's probably about right." "Well, is your Laelia asleep?" "That's the Thomas boy. He's shy around strangers, not used to anything. It's a matter of getting used to it. You look around and I'll bring you back later." The big house was quiet. Kelly thought they were on the set of a movie set. From the walls, strangers stared at them sternly. From the black and white snapshots, Jenna whispered, explaining that they were all relatives. Our Sam carefully kept the snapshots, There's a trunk full of all sorts of goodies. Hey Jenna, I feel like we're in a parallel dimension right now. There's a little bit. I always felt like that when I visited my grandfather, even a little creepy. The massive oak doors slammed, and Timofeev walked with armfuls of wood to the Russian stove. Now we'll give some comfort. The house is still good, strong. The walls ring because they are oak. They used to build with conscience, but now you can poke a finger and there's a hole. Tim, maybe we shouldn't have doused the stove. We're going back soon. We're staying with Thomas. What are you doing? It's a glacier. You have to spit for a week. Volunteer source with knowledge of business noticed in an hour and a half here, as in the tropics will be. In the house is quite possible to settle down, although already, of course, Quorum Sam dilapidated. The barn is almost ruined, and you can count the stars at night through the roof in the hay. Kelly looked at the house with a vague feeling. All the way she'd thought she'd see dilapidated buildings, but here it looked as if the owners had been away for a while and were about to return home. Jenna watched her. Maybe she'll change her mind. What are you gonna feed Thomas? Tim, do you have a store open till what time? The old man grinned into his beard. It's been 3 years since our Stelmach worked under lock and key, and then they cut her down. They said it was unprofitable to keep a trading point here. And where to get food? We have no problem with that. The shop comes every other day, and if you're in a hurry, you can run across the field too or to the village. The store is open late there. You see, we'll have to postpone the resettlement. Tim, I objected. Why postpone it? Even though we rarely get visitors to our village, and guests always have something to eat. The old man touched the stove. Do you feel how warm it is? Let's put some more in. Indeed, the old house surprisingly began to fill with heat. Grandfather Tim showed the guests where the well was, and he himself went for provisions. In the meantime, the women cleaned the floor and removed the accumulated dust. Jenna began to say goodbye. It's time for me to go, because it's dangerous to drive on such a road in the dark. I'll be sure to stop by tomorrow. And you, Kelly, call me. Tim, how's your cell service? We're not complaining. My Adriana calls her granddaughter almost every day. Just a money order. Don't worry, we're looking after your niece. No one will hurt them here. The wood nodded peacefully in the stove, and the gracious warmth warms. And not only the body, it penetrated the soul. Kelly pressed to her breast, falling asleep still sunny. Here we are with you, my son, and the villagers. How quiet and peaceful it is here. For a long time, and dreamed of such tranquility. Barely dawn was dawning outside the windows when there was a quiet knock on the door. Kelly thought it was the old man coming to check on them. But it was Adriana who gradually entered the house. The old woman spoke to Olga like an old acquaintance. How are you settling in? You're not cold. Thank you, Tim. He helped us a lot yesterday. My old man's willing to help everybody. You can't take that away from him. So Kelly, what's this I'm stopping by for? Do you have any particular attachments to my old man? I don't know what you're talking about. Adriana. Alexievna. I'm talking about you, as in father. Is the young woman embarrassed? It's a bit early to call me by my patronymic, although in our village this custom is also widespread. But I'm glad to be here. Where are you from, if it's no secret? What's the secret? My parents live in the West, but I'm a little far away. You'll get used to it in no time. We have protected areas here. As they say nowadays, clean ecology. And even today, it's the most valued of all. I used to visit my grandfather here several times when I was a kid. I was reminiscing with my chatterbox yesterday, or rather, he reminded me that you're Lisa's daughter. He may use sometimes, but he has a good memory. In fact, it's the same reason I came to see you. My David does it sometimes. Adriana ran her hand expressively over the jaw and neck. It was so funny that Kelly couldn't help laughing, and she was almost offended. It's not funny. That's young mules and barrels for you. And what am I to do with my old man has had enough? Who? My God. You say you're a country girl, though you may have different manners there. We call him when a woman with a scythe shows up. That's why I'm worried about my old man. He loves this business, and he tries to have tea everywhere. Adriana, rest assured I'll signal you if anything happens. The old woman's sympathetic. Thank you for understanding. I don't mind a little bit at a time. Do men know what's in moderation? They can't get enough. And they're not old enough to swing a saber. But he still doesn't want to understand. He jokes away. The guest was on her way out. She splashed her hands. What a stupid head. I came to warn you that today to our store on wheels is coming to us. That is, that shop, if you need to buy, is not late. You get there by 12. No sooner did you learn the Adriana steps than Grandpa Tim showed up. My Gorgon was here. Why did you do that? Tim. Adriana is a very pleasant woman. I don't know about her. She only pretends to be nice. She's very concerned about your health herself. The old man staggered back, looking at Kelly. This is a surprise to me. What kind of an experience is that? He must have told me a lot of stories. What am I, the last alcoholic? No, your wife didn't say anything like that. But as a medical professional, I wouldn't advise you to drink too much. Grandpa's numb. Are you a doctor? No, I'm a nurse. That changes things. Grandpa quickly turned 180 degrees and carried everything down the path. Amazing thing, Thomas. Let's get ready to go for a walk. The toddler was overjoyed, running around the spacious room grabbing his things. But the biggest surprise awaited Kelly ahead. She had noticed the crowd waiting to arrive at the shops from afar too. But the old men and old women were not standing idly by, but dancing. How much of that was possible with a stroller? A woman hurried to the place of the spontaneous celebration. Adriana, in a low voice, with almost masculine tenor, sang fence ditties. The others dashingly danced an unfamiliar dance. Oh, girls, where have we been? It is a pity there is no harmony. And that would give out, as in my youth would be. Kelly began to clap her hands, and even little Thomas supported the general joy. The baby liked the dance so much that he miraculously broke free, and the three bears in the stroller that kept him from falling while moving. The boy squealed with delight. He spun on the spot, and then squatted, trying to repeat the movement of the adults. Grandfather Tim conducted with his cane. What wonders our village does. Even the boy couldn't resist. You can see that he's our boy. And how could one not believe in the connection of generations? The restless grandfather was ready to philosophize on his favorite subject. But a shop arrived, and the people of the little village lined up. Kelly bought what she needed and hurried home. All evening Thomas and self-consciously repeated the movement of the marvelous dance. But this process gave the little one obvious pleasure. Kelly watched him and mentally noted how everything had changed in just a few days. He had never been so active. Perhaps even the air here was healing. The first weeks of village life had flown by like a day. Kelly tried to organize her life. Her neighbors helped her in this. Every other day an aunt visited the village. One day Jenna arrived accompanied by her husband. Jack Vladimirovich took out of the car TV. Though old, but the image is clear. You will watch TV series and cartoons with Thomas. That's not all. We brought you some goodies from. Kelly was pleased with the attention of her relatives, but at the same time she didn't want to burden them with unnecessary worries. Thank you very much. But we're already full. You're welcome to stock up. It's not too tight. Yeah, Kelly. Call us more often. We're with Jenna now, and we're kind of responsible for you. Uncle was averting his eyes in embarrassment, like he was guilty of something. From his demeanor, Kelly guessed that the kind aunt had given her husband a preventive workout beforehand. Kelly went out to see the guests off and suddenly noticed that the narrow path had turned into a trampling path. Auntie winked at her meaningfully, and I would call this path the road of kindness. I have always been amazed at the breadth of heart of the villagers. There really are very good people here, for the most part. Kelly didn't bother to tell her relatives that she had already heard unkind remarks about her, but she tried not to react to gossip. Like the old Adriana said, understand the tongues here and get tired. No need to pay attention to such trivialities. Kelly took a little walk with her son in the fresh air and was about to go home when she noticed a strange woman on the path. That's a steep path you're on. It's hard to climb without training. I'm here to see you, Kelly. The formal address and the well-dressed ladies embarrassed the girl. I see you weren't expecting company. I'm Deputy Nancy. Nice to meet you. Perhaps we'd better go inside. Yes, it'll be more comfortable to talk there. I have a favor to ask of you. The guests took off their coats and headed for the stove. It's warm and cozy. I can't believe that not so long ago this house was in complete disrepair. How long will you stay with us? I don't know yet, but I would like to stay here longer. That's great. When you've made up your mind, when you're ready to register, I'll help you. Now, about the case. I heard you're a nurse. Yes, I graduated from the regional medical school, but I only managed to work for 3 years. Then I got married. Then I got a maternity leave. Then I had to leave. I ended up here. I'm not gonna ask you what happened. Nothing much. I was taking care of my sick mother-in-law. My husband was indulging in his favorite pastimes, drinking and partying. He took out loans, wanted to go into business, but he failed. And one bad day, the bailiffs came and seized all the property. Nancy sighed sympathetically. You've had it. But don't worry, you won't get in with us. I've already realized that. My son and I are all taken care of here. They'd bring me treats every day. The woman was evasive. There are really good people here. But you shouldn't trust everyone without a second thought. I don't want to upset you in vain. But I already heard that you leave your child alone and lead a dissolute life. Kelly couldn't help her indignation. I'm on a binge, a new life. But that's not true. Who would say such a thing? There's no way to know the source of the rumor. But I see that you are slandered, and to avoid such talk in the future, I want to offer you a job. But I have a child. Where would I put him? Wouldn't a baby bother you? Our social worker quit, and 3 old ladies are left homeless. As a nurse, you can look after their health and help out around the house. It's a temporary job for now, but you can earn some money. Do you agree? Sure. Thank you very much. All evening, Kelly wondered who had prevented her coming to this remote village. The positive mood she'd been in all week was gone. It had been replaced by doubt and a sense of uncertainty. Ethan's right. I'm a naive fool who trusts everyone without a second thought. Now I'll be smarter. After the visit, Nancy Kelly no longer opened her soul wide open. She was friendly with the villagers, but didn't open up to anyone else. She did not accept gifts from neighbors either, so as not to offend people in vain. She said that she and her son had everything. Caring for helpless old people brought some variety into her life. But the young woman did not feel full satisfaction. Grandfather Tim unexpectedly suggested a way out. The breath of spring was already felt everywhere, and the villagers began to slowly plan how to intelligently dispose of their days. That's why the ubiquitous neighbor came to see Kelly. It must be strange for you to work on the land. Why did my mom and I plant stuff every year? It's a good thing. The earth likes to be tended. If you need plowing, you're welcome. I have my own rock tractor. I do everyone a favor for an in-kind payment. Kelly immediately recognized the old man's cunning move. Well, I'll keep it in mind, but I'll probably do it myself. Thomas and I don't need a lot of shoveling. That's up to the owner. What else can I suggest? I have an unpaid debt to Sam. God rest his soul. Throwing a glance at the red corner, the old man crossed himself. Your grandfather helped me in his time. Now I want to repay the favor in his memory. What are you getting at? I'm not getting anywhere. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'll give you the hives for starters. You have a boy growing up. He needs honey for his health. He needs honey. Kelly waved her hands. That you me as a child, these insects so and bit me that I am still afraid of any buzzing. The bee is a noble creature. It was created by God himself for the benefit of man, and there's no need to be afraid of it. I'll show you everything. We'll have a master class, so to speak, and you give me injections for sciatica. The doctor prescribed it. Tim, how are you not ashamed? I'll give you injections without your bees. I'm not used to being paid for nothing. And in vain you refuse, because beekeeping is useful and very profitable. You won't notice how much you're pulling in. At first, Kelly thought the idea was fantastic. But while cleaning out a closet, she came across a bunch of old books. All of them had bees and honeycombs on the covers. She started reading out of sheer curiosity, but soon she couldn't tear herself away. When Tim's grandfather came for another visit, the girl showed him the books. The neighbor's eyes lit up. Yes, it's a whole treasure trove. Today, you can't buy such literature. Good for Sam. He left such a rich legacy. Kelly, you're gonna let me read it. It's all there, step by step. And the best breeds are described. I thought all bees were the same, that you beekeeping. It's a whole science. And Kelly began to patiently study this science, although she had not yet made a final decision. At the very end of spring, Kelly and her son were visited by her parents for the first time. Lisa regarded Grandpa Sam's possessions with nostalgic delight, and her father's face was darker than a cloud. Kevin didn't even want to enter the house. This was his way of expressing his displeasure at his daughter's behavior. The mother looked at him anxiously, but did not dare to be the first to start an unpleasant conversation. During the tour of the estate, the head of the family kept shaking his head. Finally, he expressed his displeasure in verbal form. But what did you prove to whom? Husband abandoned at the mercy of fate, rolled away to hell. And all this for the sake of this wooden barn. Mother begged you not to do that. I know how to do it. It's all the fruit of your upbringing. Our daughter is not of this world. Kevin, it's the city. I told you she shouldn't have stayed there. She graduated and went home. Did you, or did you have to indulge her every whim? And now what? Alone without a husband and a baby in her arms. Tell me, why did you leave? Kelly used to be afraid to disobey her father. Every word he said was an order. But now she watched him calmly, but no longer felt fear for disobedience. The girl realized that she had grown up and decided to remind her parents about it. Mom, Dad, thank you for coming. I know you're worried about me, but let me decide my own fate. Kevin wanted to say something harsh, but faltered when he met his daughter's gaze. Kelly continued, I don't want to bore you with the story of my family life, but I guess I don't have to. But I couldn't stay with a man who had been using me for 5 years. Lisa was tutoring her grandson. That is, like he used me in the usual way. He himself admitted that he married me because he had no one to leave his paralyzed mother to. The woman exclaimed indignantly to us. He was so full of it. He'd call you, and he'd come to see you. He's always looking for you, wants you back. I hope you didn't give him my coordinates. Did the parents look at each other? No, Jenna asked me not to. And I'm begging you to. We are fine here with Thomas. No scandals to be afraid of. Waiting for when and in what form our dad will come. Kevin's face still reflected not the most pleasant emotions, but he was already determined not to be as determined as immediately upon arrival, and his grandson finally melted the man's heart. Thomas was already chatting away, though not all the words could be understood, when he noticed that his grandfather was watching him. The boy came up and, actively gesticulating with his hands, began to tell about his problem. Their grandmother walked, Mom goat, and you, Kelly translated. It is he about the neighbor's dog tells you. He's a very good-natured dog, but he likes to take things. He took a toy from Thomas, and I had to deal with the four-legged hooligan. Matveev listened attentively to the translation. Then, to confirm its correctness, the boy clapped his hands and began to dance to his own accompaniment. I was touched by the little boy's performance. The grandmother lost tears of emotion. What a clever boy. All showed us kidnapped by the praise of his son, Kelly said. I don't know who he took after, but he really loves to perform in public. When he comes to our Thomas Gids recitals, cheers up the old folks. Suddenly, Kevin said the skill with embarrassment. When I was a kid, my dad used to take me to the field, and I'd entertain everyone during halftime. They gave me candy for good performances. The clearing near the house became quiet. Only the birds were counting in different voices. Kelly again suggested that we at least go inside. It's like we're not family. The parents looked at each other again, but there was more warmth and joy in their gazes. The farewell was long and touching. Lissa pressed his grandson to his chest and showered him with kisses. Kevin, who was always stingy with words, did not hold back either. Kelly, if you have to, you should come, knowing that you have family people who are worried. My mother and I decided to help a little financially. The man took out his purse and took out some large bills. Will you buy what you need, daughter? Kelly took the money. Thank you. By the way, now I want to buy some fruit bees, Lisa exclaimed in surprise. By the way, Mom, I've decided to take up beekeeping. I'll try it first, and then I'll see. My neighbor Tim gave me 2 hives, but he's having trouble with the sad stamps himself. Now I will be able to buy myself. I will order elite ones, which are adapted to our climate and have high productivity. Kevin looked carefully at his daughter. If there is interest, try only this difficult business. Beekeeping does not tolerate carelessness. I know, Dad. I've already studied so much literature, and my neighbor has brought me up to speed. It's a good place here. You could say it's a preserve. It's all woods and meadows, and no chemicals. The parents looked at each other again. Kelly heard the father say to the mother when they got into the car, I didn't notice you and me. How the daughter had grown up, become independent. With the money the father gave her, the girl bought several more hives and pedigree bees. Soon she and her grandfather Timothy gathered the first honey harvest. A thick amber-colored substance caused delight. I got it. I've got it. The grandfather stroked his liquid beard contentedly. It couldn't have been any other way. You did your best, and the bees thanked you. Now you just have time to prepare the guitar and sell the surplus at once. Where I've gone to the market in the district, they'll snatch it away. Such a quality product. Oh, and what to take the bus for? The old man froze, choosing in his mind a way out of a difficult situation. No, the bus will not work here. You'll take the bike from me, while later you'll buy your own for Thomas and my old lady will reconsider. By the end of the summer, Kelly already had her own and 2-wheeled transportation, and she made bright plans for the future. The girl did not expect that honey business can bring a stable income, and she liked this occupation more and more every day. Summer drew closer to sunset when Kelly received a call from David, Jenna's son. This call was all the more surprising because the girl had no relationship with her third cousin. Only in their distant childhood they had spent vacations together at Sam's grandfather's house and crossed paths a few times at joint family vacations. Kelly was surprised by the unexpected call. David was pleased with the impression he had made. It's clear from his voice that he and his sister are shocked. But I'll keep surprising you, David. I don't mind. Just don't forget I have a baby, and I don't want him to be an orphan. Do you think badly of me? I'm not a monster to drive a woman to a frenzy. It was your kind aunt who gave me the idea. Aunt Jenna, well, that's to be expected. Your mom's an extraordinary woman. Yes, she's the ultimate in extraordinary ideas. So I'm about to go on vacation, and I'm sick to death of foreign countries. I want to relax at home in nature. David, come to us. If it's okay with you, that's fine. Jenna told me to come to you. She said you were kind and would not deny hospitality to 2 supporters. Kelly was confused. 2. Are you going with your wife or your girlfriend? A little bit of a slip. I have a friend, and he's my boss, by the way. He loves fishing and mushrooms. It's about time. I wouldn't have thought of the village if it weren't for my mother. You're right to remember. Come on over. Don't worry, we'll take care of you, and I'll tell you with pride. Liam and I are in favor of a healthy lifestyle, so we have a negative attitude to drinking. David, no need for unnecessary explanations. Just come. End of story. Second time in less than a year. The small village was experiencing such a high-profile event. All the inhabitants able to move independently lined up at the entrance to the village, folding their arms visor. Old men and old women gazing into the distance where a white dot was growing larger by the second. Tim's grandfather had the sharpest eyesight because he was checked every year at the district hospital as the chief expert. The old man said the white car was a foreign car. We've never had one of those before. Maybe the relatives came to visit someone's soul. The old man looked meaningfully at the crowd of fellow villagers, but all almost instantly shook their heads no. We have no such cars. And these are strangers coming. Maybe for honey. Heads turned toward the farmstead again simultaneously. To an outside observer, it might have seemed that the villagers were in a well-rehearsed flash mob. So synchronized were their movements. Tim quacked approvingly and waved his cane. Definitely guests. And who could it be? A white luxury sedan drove smoothly into the main and only street and stopped. Tim couldn't take his admiring gaze off the car. The impression was so strong that the old man almost lost the ability to speak. He stroked the car, blistered his hand, and whispered, "How beautiful is it? You can't take your eyes off it, like a carriage from a fairy tale." Those who arrived gave Starikov a chance to express his feelings. David was the first to get out of the car. "Good health to all of you," grandfather answered for everyone. "And good health to you." And who arrived when David's companion also left the car? Did the women make money? Looks like a deputy. The one they showed on TV. The old deputy and the young one. Probably the chief. David grinned. He was well acquainted with local etiquette and knew that any man in a suit was immediately written down as a superior by the villagers, grandmothers and grandfathers. "We're not bosses. We have come to your paradise to relax." The crowd became animated and began to describe the advantages of these places. "It's nice here. We've got mushrooms and berries coming up." David caught the right wave with fishing, as differently happens, but not poor. "There's always fresh fish on the table. So we're not wrong." A little grandmother stood out from the crowd. "Would you like some tea? I'm Kelly's brother. She lives on my grandfather's estate." "You should have said so. She's talking about fishing and mushrooms." "Who's with you?" "He's a friend of mine from work. His name is Liam. He's my boss." Tim gave David a nasty look. "He said he wasn't my boss. He'd hire my eye. I'm never wrong." The young men looked at each other and laughed. Liam said to a friend, "I never thought our appearance would cause such a stir. And indeed, it's great to have such color here." David patted his friend on the shoulder. "Liam, this is just the beginning. You can taste all the flavor later. But we won't be bored here, that's for sure." The young people didn't notice Kelly David running up to the meeting place. They should have called. "I saw you guys late." "Oh, that's okay. We've been talking to some people here. We've learned a lot of interesting things. You and your little sister have changed a lot. And I didn't see you that way." "Me too. It's been a long time." "Yeah, we're gonna have to start over." Liam didn't say a word. He looked at Kelly, and there was admiration mixed with surprise. "Kelly, meet Liam. You have made an irreversible impression on my friend. Can you say you've done some sorcery?" David's companion smiled embarrassedly and tried to explain his confusion. "I am really amazed. Just the other day I was in a gallery. There is an exhibition of an aspiring artist there, and one painting depicts a girl. They look just like you, just like you. It's so unexpected that I'm shocked." "What's the name of the painting?" "Honey Queen. It depicts a girl. She's walking through a meadow. She has a wreath on her head and bees are circling around her with very bright sunny colors. I don't know about the colors, but the name is very good. Right on the money." Grandfather Tim heard the conversation and was very happy with a suitable nickname for his neighbor. He roused the women who were looking at the white woman's car. "How about the name Honey Queen? Grandpa, have you had a lot of bleach, or have you already taken it this morning? What are you dreaming of queens for? Look, Adriana will find out and tear you to pieces." Kelly warned the guests to move the car. or they'll tear it apart for parts. There's a detour. I'll show you. Kelly kept catching Liam's eyes. His attention was pleasant, but at the same time it was frightening. David watched with a chuckle as the adults pretended that nothing was going on. Once, having got a convenient moment, David, and not without a hint, said to the girl, "You knocked Vanina down a peg. By the way, he is not yet bound by the bonds of marriage, although the female half of our team is constantly working on this issue." Kelly looked at her brother like he'd said something obscene. "David, I can't get used to your teasing," I said in all seriousness. "I'm not blind, and I can see Liam's eyes on you. Seize the moment. You're an eligible suitor. Once is enough for me. I think your friend has more deserving candidates in mind. Why would he want a single mom from the middle of nowhere? Why would he humiliate himself like that? David, please don't talk about this anymore. All right, it's a deal. But you can't fight fate." Meaning, Kelly went fishing with the men, something she'd never done before. Little Thomas also showed an interest in personal fishing, and David built a miniature fishing rod for him out of a branch. In the evenings, they sat in the courtyard of the manor until the stars. Kelly listened to the guitar songs that Liam sang so soulfully and dreamed of the same love. The past was slowly receding, and her heart was eager to be filled with a new feeling. But except for compliments and looks, Liam did not dare to something more serious, and it started to flare up. The feeling froze in anticipation, but Grandfather Tim was not discouraged. The appearance of the guests spurred him to even more activity. Several times he offered the men to try Adriana's tincture, but they flatly refused. The old man had no choice but to resume his secret meetings with Michael. But since Adriana could not tolerate this creepy old man, old buddies had to change the place of turnout often. One day there was a real emergency. After a fishing trip, everyone was on their way home. Suddenly, from the estate came a scream. "People, help!" Kelly rushed through the thorny bushes towards the house. Grandfather Tim seemed to be screaming. Her brother and Liam hurried after the girl. The screams came again, but two people were calling for help. David was ahead of his sister. "If I'm not mistaken, they are shouting from the direction of your apiary. Probably the wrong bees have stung the good Winnie the Pooh." Tim was crying and holding his handkerchief to his face. Next to him on the bench sat his friend Michael, who had suffered less from insects. The old man was telling in pictures what had happened. "I've always done this and never had a malfunction. And here it's all the elite bees. She can't get enough of the domestic ones, but she bought German ones, and by definition they can't stand the American spirit." Kelly was changing cold lotions and trying to calm old Tim down. "The pedigree of the mother bee had nothing to do with it. You taught me yourself that you can't rudely intrude into the lives of these little things. You broke that rule and you got it. No defenses should be neglected." The old man threw back his abs with irritation. "Are you serious? What defense is there when people's pipes are on fire? Michael, a gift, but at the comrades in misfortune." In the meantime, the speaker continued. "You see, Michael confirms it. I hid Seagull in your hive for safety reasons, so that my Adriana would not find it. And then the opportunity came up, and Michael and I decided to pass around a piece of paper. I see, shameless bees swooped in and stung you. That's right, assholes. I'll never forgive them. Are you trying to kill my bees? Oh, I said the wrong thing out of anguish. But your bees are vicious. My tame ones don't bite. You just need to find another place to do your work. You'll be fine." David and Liam laughed on the sidelines at the hapless old men. Later, they even agreed out of sympathy to have a drink with them for the company of the mayhem, evidence, and sanitizing of the whole drink. The old men regarded this as the highest honor. But the evening of rest was interrupted by Adriana, who burst unheard into the clearing. For some reason, she made all her complaints to Kelly. "I asked you, Vasilievna, not to favor my old man. Have you disfigured as a human being a living place? No, Adriana, I don't have anything to do with it. Look after your spouse. I probably have nothing else to do. How to watch your husband. Adriana didn't expect such resistance. That's how you talk. And it's all quiet, no pretense. Once again, the local men get drunk. Make your life a living hell. Tim tried to talk sense into his wife, but she kicked him home. Yeah, it's called a party. Kelly tried not to show that these unpleasant scenes hurt her. David sadly remarked, remember, Liam, I told you about the local color. That's what's so unique about it. The villagers. They seem to be open-minded, but some of them have a pebble behind their backs. And when the winds blow the wrong way, they take that pebble out. Kelly tried to soften the situation. I'm used to it, and I don't take offense. We didn't invent these laws. It's not for us to change them. Believe me, Adriana's grandmother will show up early tomorrow morning and talk about the news like nothing happened, and scold Grandpa Tim. David smiled sourly. You're right, sis. You can't take it any other way. It's a pity we won't catch the touching scenes of remorse. Why? It's time for us to go back. Work awaits. We decided to hit the road early in the morning so we could make it by tonight. Too bad. We'll definitely come back. The fishing here is amazing. We'll keep in touch with you. Do you have internet now? Can we talk anytime? The girl did not expect that with Liam's arrival her life would become more comfortable. The young man was well versed in new technologies and helped her to restore useful applications. Later, she bought a laptop. Evening. Before the guests left, it passed quietly. Thomas slept in her mother's arms in the darkness. Kelly didn't notice David nudging the companion, but Liam only asked, do you mind if I call you? The girl laughed. Of course, we'll have something to talk about. And if you can send me on my phone a picture of the painting you told me about. The Honey Queen. You got it. I'll do it at my earliest convenience. Liam kept his promise, and a day later sent Kelly a picture of the painting with the unusual title. The gesture set her heart on fire. Of the young woman and a new hope, a small star shone ahead. Another day later he called her. The new love was not at all like the feeling that makes one make rash moves in youth. Kelly waited patiently for the calls, and she and Liam talked for about 10 to 15 minutes, meaningless topics. Neither he nor she dared to say the most important thing. But on New Year's Eve, instead of the traditional call, Kelly saw a familiar white car. This time, Liam arrived alone, and the villagers greeted him as an old acquaintance. Tim knocked on the door. Idea Vasilievna met her boss Thomas, and the woman threw her coat over her shoulders and jumped out of the house. Liam was already walking towards her with a bouquet of flowers. Even though it's customary to give warm branches at Christmas, I decided to break the rules. Kelly gratefully accepted the bouquet and invited the guest into the house. But Liam made a warning gesture. I got a lot of stuff in my car for a minute. I thought I'd play Santa Claus tonight, if that's okay with you guys. Kelly hadn't seen such an abundance of clear supplies in a long time. Only recently, thanks to the apiary, she's been able to afford to buy various delicacies. But mostly she was saving the proceeds to buy a car. Liam, why so much stuff? Why did you spend on all this gastronomic abundance? Well, they say, you spend the year as you see it. I just want you and Thomas to always have enough. By the way, I have a special gift for him. The last thing the man took out of the car was a big box. It's a robot. I hope your son will have more fun with it. He has no one to play with in the village. Thomas reacted violently to the gift. The robotic car was almost as tall as him. You pressed a button, and the mechanical man started walking when you pressed another button. It spoke, Liam. But it's a very expensive toy. The young man looked with a smile at the happy mother. Money is nothing compared to emotions. Look how excited Thomas is about his new friend. Liam sat down on the floor next to the baby and began to tell him how to operate the robot. The child grasped everything on the fly, and in an hour he was already driving the machine himself and squealed with happiness when the robot talked to him. The woman watched this cute scene for a long time, and then quietly said, while you're having fun with the robot here, I'll go prepare some appetizers. Liam didn't even turn around. Good. Thomas, did you press the wrong button just now? Let me show you. The man took the remote control and started explaining the device to the child again. Jesus, they're both just kids. Kelly rarely had holidays in her life. This New Year's Eve was a miracle, but it was Liam's words that struck her the most. I'd always dreamed of spending Christmas with my family. Kelly looked at the guest with surprise. Don't you have family? I do. But I ended all relations with them. They liked to drink, and I had to spend 2 years in an orphanage. For that reason, I'm totally against hard liquor. Where are they now? I have no idea about your parents. They were disenfranchised, and I kept dreaming that one day my mom would come and take me home. I raved about it, but no one ever came. Not until later. A distant relative. He was in the military, took me away. That's when I first knew what a real Christmas was. And where he is now, your relative died in the line of duty, but he managed to get his kids and me back on our feet. I'm very grateful to that man. And I wish I had a close-knit family, too. I dream about it all the time, too, even though I seem to be doing fine. But my dad has a hard temper. He wouldn't even let me go to school. He thought I'd get into some wild story on the very first day. You're not so good, Kelly. And I wish this magical evening could go on. I'd like that very much too. But let's not rush into it. Let's just let time play out. All right then. We'll defer to your judgment. Towards spring, Liam arrived again to a drunken Thomas. He was already greeted like a best friend. The boy chattered away, trying to get his guests' attention. When the adults started chatting, he took offense. Liam noticed the child's behavior. They're already starting to show their character. It must be difficult for you with him. Not at all. He's the one playing to the audience. But when it's just the two of us, he's like a silk. Of course, a child is bored alone. He would be much more fun in the company of similarly curious kids. But alas, nothing can be done. We have no other place to live. I'll save up for a car. Then we'll go visiting. Liam asked Kelly cautiously, wouldn't you like to move to the city? The woman grinned bitterly. I'm past that stage, and it's not exactly a pleasant memory. I understand that, but there are more opportunities in the city. I'm willing to argue with you here. You can live anywhere. That's not what's important. It's what you're aiming for. You know, I found a lot of interesting things on the internet. That's interesting. And what the honey queen dreams of. By the way, with your easy hand, everyone in the village calls me that now. Although I'm not the only one with an apiary, and I have the right plans. I have an idea, but I don't want to reveal it. Are you superstitious? You guessed it, but I can open the veil of secrecy a little. I want to make unusual things, or rather products. I'm still collecting useful materials, but I think I'll be able to start working in this direction in the spring. Kelly really wanted to tell Liam about her idea, but she was really afraid to scare off her dream. She decided to make cosmetics based on bee products. But to realize this plan, she needed to buy special equipment, and this would require a considerable amount of money. She could not, and did not want to ask Liam, although she knew that he would not refuse her financial support. Before leaving, the young man asked, David and I really enjoyed our vacation last year. If you don't mind, I wouldn't mind another vacation here. Liam didn't have to ask. You're my best friend. Just a friend. You wouldn't want more than that. Kelly knew she would have to answer that question one day, but her mind was jumbled, and she answered vaguely. Liam, we agreed to take things slow, but you and I are adults, and we understand that such uncertainty can't last indefinitely. That's right. But how do you envision life when you're in town and I'm here? Well, for example, if you don't want to leave your farm, then I can move here. Your job. Liam laughed. And I'll retrain you to be a beekeeper. Of course, that's a joke. But many people today work remotely. It's an option. I'll have to think about it. Please think faster. I'll do my best. They agreed to solve this major issue in the summer when they would come on vacation for a few days after his departure. Kelly could not concentrate on business. She was also distracted by Thomas, who demanded more and more attention. Finally, she picked a day to consult with the deputy. Nancy was greeted by a visitor. Cold. "What on earth are you, Kelly, stirring up our village?" The young woman was taken aback. "Can I ask you more about what I've done again?" "Well, I won't go into the details of your private life, although the whole neighborhood is buzzing that you've taken your husband out of the family and are seeing your lover in front of your child. That's your private life. But there's another problem. Let me ask you, what are you living on?" "Why do you ask?" "Because you don't work, and you allow yourself to buy expensive things. They say you're going to buy a car. So what? I don't have the right to buy a car." "Yes, you do. But where do you get the money from? You don't work, even though your son is 3 years old. Your parents and aunt don't help. Why do I have to answer to you? Unless you want to tell me the source of your income, you'll have to tell the prosecutor. You have to obey the law. If you're in business, you should formalize everything properly." The woman ran her hand over her face tiredly. "Understand, I have nothing against you, and I understand how difficult it is for you to live alone, but you have become the main object of gossip. Sometimes our elderly fantasists will tell such stories that you can't believe it. It's a good thing they're used to signaling me. And what if they report me to the district police?" "Nancy, honestly, I did not know that the 5 hives I have need to be registered. In principle, I came to you for advice on this very issue." The official listened attentively to the young mother and admired her plan. "Original ideas. I've never even heard of such an innovation. But you realize, Kelly, that you'll have to gather a lot of paperwork to get a permit." "I understand, but there's no other way. Let's make a deal. You get the paperwork together, and I'll help you move your business forward faster. It's in our best interest to give business the green light, especially since you're a young mom and you're doing something so rewarding. Women will be delighted, and such products will definitely be in high demand." Nancy's words turned out to be prophetic. Kelly decided to make a few jars of honey cream and some top lip gloss to try out. She took these samples to the sanitary station for examination and then showed them to Nancy along with the report. "She was surprised to see you so quickly, and your paperwork is still under review. But I'm sure there will be a favorable decision. They're very interested at the top. In fact, the district authorities have decided to make a little publicity out of it." "What do you mean?" "I'm amazed at your naivety. It's all about image. And for that, a little calculation is in order." Nancy looked around, and making sure that no one was present, said in a whisper. Upstairs, they decided to hold everything in a solemn atmosphere, so that there would be journalists and representatives from different organizations. In short, a bit of an ostentatious action. But it's good for you. I assure you that your unusual cosmetics will go well. And there will be gifts from sponsors. Very useful appliances. I've already seen the project, so get ready. Thank you, Nancy. Kelly, and be careful with your neighbors. We don't want any more rumors. Okay, I'll work on it. Kelly had a lot of different feelings. On the one hand, gossip, and on the other, real help. The young woman had not yet fully realized how to live in a world of such contradictions. In the evening, she told Liam of her first victory. You know, Liam, I've been living here for over 2 years now, but I can't get used to the special rural life. I guess that's the beauty of it. You remember the last time we spoke? Yes, and I even made the decision to say the word I've been waiting to say. Come if you haven't changed your mind. I'm not in the habit of changing my mind. I'll be there by the end of the month. It wasn't until Kelly hung up the phone that she realized that was it. Her life was taking a new turn. She really hoped that this turn would be happier than all the other turns. 2 days later, Nancy came to see her. By the look on her face, she had good news. Come in. Nancy, I see you're here for a reason. You're quite right, Kelly. There's a gala and your performance in 2 weeks. Tell me, will that give you enough time to prepare? Kelly thought for a moment. She was now preparing a hand cream, not just any hand cream. I mean, not just a respectful one, but one that would restore some youthfulness to her hands. If to sit tightly for a couple of days and then give the cream to check, she will be able to present several of her products. In general, Kelly had Napoleonic plans. It was all about money. So far, she did not have so much money to buy all the necessary equipment. But she already knew, that she would buy it anyway. So to speak, Kelly's individual entrepreneurial status was a big success. However, Kelly herself was given only about half an hour, and the rest of the time the officials were busy with something else. But even that was enough. Following Nancy's hint, Kelly presented her cream to the wives of the most important people, and she really hoped they liked it. The first echo came just a week later. Kelly heard a car pull up in front of the house. Strange how the villagers had seen it. Usually they lined up in twos, and anyone passing by would be greeted. Not here. Or they're used to people coming to her all the time, or something else. A beautiful woman of about 45 got out of the car and walked toward the entrance. Kelly hurried to meet her. "Kelly, hi." "Yes, that's me." The woman scrutinized her. "You're not who I thought you were." "I'm sorry. To whom do I have the honor?" The woman smiled. "I'm sorry. My name is Sophia. I own my own cosmetic store, and I have a business proposition for you." Kelly got a little tingle inside. "Please come inside." The woman looked very cozy. "I have to admit, it's been a long time since I've been in an environment like this. And you know, it doesn't seem old-fashioned. It seems very natural and appropriate for the area. I like it too, although at first it felt like I was in another world." "Tea, coffee, let's have some tea." 10 minutes later, they were sitting across from each other. "As I said, I have a big and not the cheapest cosmetic store. My customers are very wealthy ladies. Not too long ago, one of my clients bragged to me about your cream and even shared a little bit. To say that I am thrilled is not to say anything. I would like to offer you a niche in my store. It's both a name for you and, of course, money. I don't think a cream like this can come cheap. In addition, while you, so to speak, not promoted, I think not expedient to open your own store. And so you and I are on the plus side. The store makes a markup, and we are promoting you. Promote themselves. I have long been in this business and know very well that some cosmetics, which seems and better, no, does not go, as well as it does not promote, and some that did not look at. It takes off instantly at first. If we sign a contract with you, I think it would be for 6 months to start with. Well, if that's okay with you. But I've tried your cream. I only used French cosmetics. I don't know why you decided to try it." The pause was getting longer. Kelly couldn't take it anymore. "How did it go?" "Well, you know, I wouldn't have come. I never ask for anything. And now, in general, I'm sure that we can work together very fruitfully. You'll read this, and then call me when you've made your decision." The woman moved toward the door, but turned around. "My advice to you is not to spread yourself too thin. You make 10 jars a month, so make it 10. The price will tell you everything." Kelly didn't sleep well that night. Somehow her small success was pushing her beyond her expectations. She asked herself if she was ready for it. It wasn't until the morning that she said yes. 2 months passed. "Kelly, if you knew how I feel right now, I don't think I've had any fun at all. It all started just here with you. You know, Liam, I feel that way too. In fact, I'm trying to forget everything that happened before. The only thing I feel sorry for is Nina. She was a wonderful person. When we call your parents." Kelly smiled. "I think a little later. We'll get it all written up, and then we'll call them. You don't want a wedding?" "No, there's absolutely no need for one." Kelly was so looking forward to her and Liam writing poetry. But what she's completely missing is that this is the countryside. And if people know 10 minutes before a car turns up, you can't hide something like this. About 2 weeks before the wedding, Adriana came to see them. "Hello, Kelly." "Hello, Liam." Kelly laughed. You're very formal today, Adriana. Kelly came to apologize. She's a bit cryptic, the neighbor said. I don't understand why. Liam looked at Adriana with interest. He already knew her character. Yes, she wasn't an evil person by and large anyway. But why should you know better? But I must have done something to offend you. I'm hearing from strangers that you're getting married. Kelly sighed. Well, that's it, Adriana. There's not gonna be a wedding. We're just going to split up, that's all. The old woman looked at her, not understanding. Don't you have any money? Why not? We don't want to celebrate. What do you mean, we don't want to celebrate? It's a holiday, no matter what. Kelly and Adriana tried to argue with each other. Finally, Kelly got tired, and Adriana said, don't expect people to just show up to congratulate you, and you have a table set. The neighbor left and Liam looked cheerfully at Kelly. We're going to go to the city to buy a wedding dress. Kelly just sighed. The wedding turned out to be surprisingly fun. The villagers brought with them both harmonicas and balalaicas, and soon modern music was left in a corner, and all the guests were happily rocking to ditties, and more often with salt. Yes, with pepper performed by Adriana. The most important dancer was, of course, Thomas. Next to him danced dashingly David, and his mother and father, and Jenna and her husband supported them. This time Mom and Dad were very happy. Dad, of course, because of his character, at first looked at Liam, but after a few hours he smiled and said that now he was calm for his daughter. Mom liked it too. Liam, and even more liked the way Liam treated Thomas. The boy approached Liam more often than his mother, and Liam never once said how busy he was. The next day, his father asked at dinner, well, how are you doing with the honey, with the bees? You never told me if it all worked out. Kelly smiled. But I think it did. And then my mother stepped in. You know, Kelly, I got this cream through someone I know. Do you have any idea what it's like? You better tell me how much it cost. Dad rolled his eyes. Come on, it doesn't matter. Beauty doesn't come cheap. So the woman told me that this cream is handmade and it is based on bee products. And they say the girl who makes it is very young, and they call her the Honey Queen. I was wondering, since you're doing something you're not familiar with, and you're good at it, maybe you should try it. Kevin pushed his wife lightly. What are you saying? You think it's that easy? That girl must have been trained for it. Where's our Kelly supposed to learn? Kelly looked at Liam, and he looked at her. She just didn't know what to do. Then she turned around in a low, distressed voice and said, Ma Honey Queen, that's me. And the cream is mine too. Her mother and father stared at her as if she'd lost her mind. Kelly got up, went out to the room she had set up for work, took out the cream lipstick and more of her jars. Here, Mom, this is your cream. This is your lipstick. Nobody has this one yet. It won't be on sale for another week. Lissa took a long time to come to her senses. Neither she nor, of course, she expected this. Kevin, as he was leaving, my father said, you know, I was sure that if you didn't listen to me, your whole life would go wrong. And now I think I was wrong to give you my advice, and you're much better at managing things without it. And Kelly did something she hadn't done in a long time. She snuggled up to her father and said, who knows what would have happened to me if I hadn't listened to you sometimes. You're coming to visit us sometime, not for 2 days, but for longer. Liam and I have decided to do a real overhaul, but to make it a manor house, so that you can see it from afar. Father looked around at the huge house. Mother said, Kelly, this is where we should put it. It would take a fortune. Kelly smiled. Well, first of all, I have a husband who makes a decent living. And secondly, Mom, you've seen how much my products cost. And then there's honey. And there's all kinds of honey. Father's purse. Liam, if you need any help, don't be shy. We'll help you with money, and we can do something else. Okay, Kevin, I will. David also promised to come together on vacation. We'll be done in no time. I've decided to do everything myself. Mostly, yeah. I wanted to please my soul. Well, he's already got a crew for the roof. As soon as Kelly and I decide what kind of roof we want, they'll be here. I didn't really get around to it until a few years later. Did they fix the roof a little, or did they stop after that? Kelly got pregnant, couldn't work full-time. Liam thought about it for a while and decided he'd help his wife. Time flies by. Now Liam and Kelly's little girl is almost 4, and Thomas himself is about to go to school. The makeup was going fast. There was always a shortage. More and more people wanted to have miracle products that are made in real natural conditions from real natural products. Finally, Liam gave the order. We can't procrastinate any longer. For so long the house hadn't failed. Now a major overhaul for sure. Kelly looked on. She really did. She was so used to it that she didn't notice the contrast. The house so resentful and old, though big, and all the new buildings, even the little fountain in the yard. It so happened that came Sophia. She sadly told me that she would gladly not let Olia go away from her, but she was interested in her foreign partners. Kelly, they all moved there on the natural. In general, they are ready to come, ready to buy you all the necessary equipment, just so that you do not refuse them. It just so happened that at the same time with a large car, with foreign license plates and workers arrived at the house. That's the first crew for the roof. And the next day they were to come to do the foundation and the house. Kelly took the foreigners into the house, and Liam took care of the workers. Here, I never thought I'd be fixing the roof of such a celebrity. I didn't think such people could live in the village. Ethan hardly listened to him. The bailiffs finally caught up with him yesterday. He's changed his city 3 times already, but he still finds it. I wonder if it could be on the map. And he didn't do it right. If he'd met with them right away, maybe he'd be free now. As it is, the apartment is sealed, but not sold. The debts are not being paid. He's a tumbleweed. And yesterday they told him quite seriously that he'll serve 3 months, then jail. He didn't want to go to jail. Jen, can you hear me at all? Yes, I can. Who's the celebrity? What kind of artist? No, the honey queen. Ethan, use your brain. Yeah, he's been hearing that word a lot lately. Something to do with expensive cosmetics. Well, people are lucky. He should be so lucky. He could pay off his debts right away. He sighed. I wonder if they'll be fed. He drank the last of it yesterday. Today he couldn't even buy kefir. It's a shame to borrow from his partner. He heard the door of the house open, and foreigners rushed into the yard. They were talking cheerfully in their own language. Then the landlady came out. Thomas, where are you? A boy came out of the barn. Where did you take Lisa? Nowhere. She's sleeping in my barn. You know she likes it there. Ethan's still awake. Yes. Well, that can't be right. His partner gave him a weird look. Jen, what are you doing? What? Honey Queen, speak. He waited for the foreigners to leave and got downstairs in time. The landlord had left. He'd said he was going to a construction store earlier. The woman had her back to him, but the boy was looking at him. Yes, there was no doubt. It was Thomas. Well, hello, Kelly. That's how I was thrown to my doom. How a pack of wolves gave me the fat to eat, like cheese and butter. She turned sharply. Ethan was taken aback. The ex-wife looked younger. She looked prettier. Ethan, what are you doing here? I'd like to know what I'm doing here. You left me at such a difficult time. You're supposed to be my wife, helping me out. Don't be ridiculous. You didn't even show up for your mother's funeral. And me and little Thomas are out on the street. I don't need workers like that in the house, so you can leave. Kelly took Thomas by the hand and headed toward the paradise that Thomas and Liam had set up as a workshop. The boy, in his almost 7 years, knew how to handle on top of their other tools. His dad had taught him how to use a computer with his eyes closed. Ethan was astonished. His short-lived wife had ears and a voice. He'd do the right thing now. Ethan had forgotten that he was not his wife for a long time. He had one thing on his mind now. It was her fault, so she should pay. Kelly. She turned around. We didn't agree. You have to give me a lot of money, or I'll take my son away. Thomas hid behind his mother, but then took a step forward and stood in front of her. I'm not going anywhere with you, and don't you dare yell at Mom. Kelly was at a loss. She just didn't know what to do. Ethan's partner was frozen on the roof like a statue. He had no idea what was going on. Ethan, I don't owe you anything. On the contrary, it's by your grace. I'm living on the street. Ethan, you're in debt. Beijing, please, is my home. Ethan smiled, stepped sharply forward, and grabbed Thomas. Stay back, or I'll wring his neck. Do you hear me? Give me the money. He knew he was doing something wrong, but he couldn't stop. There was no turning back, and it was nice to watch the ex's eyes recognize the fear. Ethan, please, I'll give you everything. Now, come on and hurry up. He only had time to say it. Then he released Thomas and collapsed to the ground himself. Behind him stood his partner. He stared at the board in his hands, then dropped it and turned to Kelly. I'm sorry. She grabbed Thomas in an armful, dragging him away. Take Lisa and go home. Lock yourself in and don't open the door. Mom, what about you? Riddle the wicked. What's going on here? Liam looked around the yard. Kelly exhaled a sigh of relief. The wife had been given a full ride. There were a lot of articles, but Kelly didn't go to the trial. Liam did, but she couldn't. First, she had a student, David's young wife, who had bought a house nearby. And in the second place, Kelly was expecting a baby again. Liam, when he found out, couldn't help himself. Now I'm going to have a really big and strong family, even though I already have one. How did you come to be? That's how the family came about. I love you very much. Kelly knew it. She's the luckiest woman in the world.